Hey, you're listening to the C3 Network Podcast with Dan Holland. Our mission is to create a network of microchurches that are finding, teaching, and equipping people to be on mission. Our hope is that this encourages you. Be sure to leave us a review so you can help us share our message with more people who need to hear it. And now, Dan Holland.
Have you ever chased something so hard that you were sure was going to satisfy, only to get it and realize it didn't? Not that it was bad, not sinful, just it's not what you expected. Like you crossed the finish line and discovered it wasn't the finish line at all. Welcome to Chasing the Wind. I'm Dan Holland, and we're looking at 10 rules from Solomon for catching what lasts. This is rule number 1. And when I was in college, I walked into a summer Bible class on a Wednesday night. Attendance was down because it was summertime, but not down enough to eliminate opportunity. I was with a few of my buddies when I saw 3 young ladies across the room, and in a moment of, well, let's call it extreme spiritual maturity, I decided I would take all 3 of them out on a date. Separately, of course. Here's the problem. I mixed up the name and the person. There was Kathy and Connie were on opposite ends of the row, and I asked a buddy of mine, who's the girl at the end of the row? And I was thinking about Kathy. He told me her name was Connie. I locked it in. I found her number, called her, and I said, hey, I'd like to take you out. She said the normal thing you'd say to a stranger when he calls you like that and says, who are you? And I said, well, I'm me. And somehow Connie agreed to go out. I drove up to her house, big house, long driveway, and I had this image in my mind of who I was picking up, which was Kathy, right? The door opened, her mother greeted me, and a minute later, Connie came out looking like she was dressed for a date. I smiled and said, it's good to see you again. And my face must have given me away, which I'll explain in a second. Anyway, off we went. We had a great time. And I never said a word about it, never told her. About a year later, fast forward, I was interning at a church in Oklahoma City, and Connie's mother worked there as a secretary. And one day she called me over and said, hey, Dan, I know what happened. And my heart dropped. But it turns out she was very gracious to me. She said, you handled it kindly. And she said, I appreciate that so much. And we had a nice conversation, but here's the point. Sometimes we build an image of how life is supposed to end up. And if that image is wrong, you can spend years chasing it and still arrive disappointed. See, that's Ecclesiastes. Solomon writes as a man who had access to literally everything people chase: wealth, pleasure, work, achievement, recognition. If there was a mountain to climb, Solomon stood at the top of it. And when he got there, he wrote a word our culture hates. This is what he said: meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. And now, it's not because life has no value, but it's because life has no value without God at the center. So Solomon gives us the foundation rule. Now, it's not flashy, it's not complicated, it's not a productivity hack, just 2 words. Please God. In Ecclesiastes 12, he says, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 26, he adds, to the person or the man who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. And that's not a small promise. That's a life anchor. So here's the question that sits at the door of this entire series. Who are you trying to please? If your life is aimed at pleasing yourself, you'll have moments of happiness, no doubt, but also that quiet ache where nothing feels quite like it's enough. If your life is aimed at pleasing people, you'll be exhausted because the scoreboard never stops moving. It's always changing. But if your life is aimed at pleasing God, why, then your foundation holds. It's solid. Your success isn't rooted in outcomes. It's rooted in obedience. And Jesus makes this painfully clear. In John 14, verse 15, he said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. See, love becomes action. Reverence for God becomes obedience to God. And in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus tells us the difference between wise and foolish living. Well, simple. The wise man hears his words and puts them into practice. His life is what Jesus says is like built on a rock. But the foolish man hears the same words and he does literally nothing. His life looks fine until pressure hits. See, a foolish person may agree with truth and never act on it, making it worthless. The wise person practices it. So what does rule number 1 look like in real life? Well, there's 3 simple handles. First, start every day with one question. Before the phone, before the noise, ask this question: Father, what would please you today? And second, run decisions through a filter. When a choice appears, ask, does this move me closer to God or further from God? That question will rescue you from quiet compromises that are really easy to get away with. Third, do one act of obedience quickly, not dramatically, not for attention, just obedience. Like forgive someone, tell the truth, shut down temptation, encourage, give, serve, just one thing, but do it on purpose. Because the goal of this series isn't information, it's transformation. Solomon isn't trying to make us smarter. He's trying to keep us from chasing the wrong life. He's trying to help us reach the end without regret. Kind of like Paul, who said, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And it's like Jesus, who said on the cross, it is finished. And it starts here. Please God. Maybe not perfectly, not performing, not to earn his love, but because you already belong to him, and life only holds together when it is rightly related to God. So this week, let's stop chasing the wind. Let's aim at something that lasts. Let's live like wise builders, not just hearers of the word, but doers. And it begins with the first rule: please God.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this podcast, we post a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe and leave us a review so you can help share our message. We'll see you next time.